Oh, all right, we're going to be able to do this stream at last. I was asleep for a big chunk of this morning, and I was planning on just uploading something. Oh, due to the fact that I just, sometimes you just don't feel like doing streams, but I do try to keep a consistency about things. So this is, I might be able to also get some more people in here due to it being in the afternoon versus the early hours of the morning. But I don't usually follow politics in the UK for two reasons. One is that I don't live there. The other one is that for the last 3 years, the only real story I hear about besides leadership changes is Brexit. Like it seems almost as though that one issue has completely taken up the news over there, and it's gotten so bad to where the only time I ever really hear about, let's say, a statistic affecting the UK is if it's mentioned during the prime minister's questions, which for some reason on the Parliament channel they haven't been uploading recently. So maybe they've stopped doing them for the last 2 months. I hope not, because those were they're really informative. You hear stuff in those you don't see those in news articles. You know, to actually see these different representatives saying to the prime minister, "Hey, my respective place of representation is being affected by this issue in this manner," and it's a nice blend of stuff that is very unique to them. But I was going to mention before we get started that this month the current prime minister, so Johnson, the one who have the picture of in the thumbnail, uh, had his request for a short parliamentary break for the Conservative Party conference rejected by a really slim vote. It was like 17 people voted more for rejecting it than against it. Um, and this has come as he pissed people off for saying that the best way to honor a murdered MP was to get Brexit done. Kind of like using death for their own little political agenda. Which, I mean, there's a reason that he was called the UK version of Trump. And I always have to say to people, it's like, the Kate Steinle thing, right? It's like, yeah, that was a horrible incident where some evil person killed somebody, but it was used by Trump to push the narrative that illegal immigrants are these, murdering savages coming from other regions and whatnot. When the majority of crime in the U.S. is committed by other Americans. Let's see. Elliot says, "I'm kind of nervous with this Brexit thing." Yeah, I really. It's been going on for so long and just turns back and forth. Like I don't even know anymore. But the reason that I put the title as is because I was reading a headline from CNN today, which anytime they talk about politics from another country, it's usually again leadership changes or some major event that's too big for them to ignore, like the Hong Kong demonstrations. And they were mentioning how apparently one of the possible outcomes of the current Brexit negotiations is Johnson stepping down for Corbyn to take over as the prime minister as part of some kind of deal to get enough votes for it. And I've actually not really mentioned this that much, but 3 years ago when they had the UK premiership election, or rather the overall elections over there, I actually had supported Corbyn. And I'm not talking about, oh, I donated or whatever, but I was a vocal supporter of him because I liked his positions on being anti-war and whatnot. Um, and then really that was something that kind of pisses me off about Theresa May, because I was like, if the only thing that she's really any better than Republicans on in the U.S. is gay rights, and that's pretty much it. I mean, she was dumb enough to get up there and say that that the UK participating in the Saudi-led genocide in Yemen was keeping UK civilians off the streets. That somehow people, regular people that are homeless or would be homeless have had that destroyed by the fact that we've killed, or yeah, the US and UK have killed people in other regions. That somehow correlates to the success of the lowered homeless rate. I just that's what I'm saying, man. People have diarrhea of the mouth. But I'm gonna go and look for an article to read because I actually want to see if I can get the details of this out, and I'm gonna try to speak about it. because I don't want to turn this into a thing of just recounting all the weird stuff that Johnson has said, because it's kind of like when they do it for Trump, where we're already used to that, and I don't really care that much anymore. Elliot says Theresa May people bashed that she was bad her job, but it takes so much balls and courage to do her job. Well, Elliot, just to kind of like, and this isn't to push back against what you're saying, but would you say the same thing of someone who is U.S. president or chancellor of Germany? Basically, whenever you're the head of state, it takes in an elected country, that is, it takes so much balls and courage to do that job. Would you agree with that? All right, this article is by The Sun. The Labour leader has been cooking up a stitch up to stop Brexit behind closed doors with the Scottish nationalists, and a key figure said they will launch their bid this week. They hope to topple Bojo by getting MPs to vote to say they have no confidence in him as a leader. Corbyn would then be shuttled in as a caretaker PM, despite Labour not winning an election, with the sole purpose of delaying Brexit. Former deputy leader of the SNP, Stuart Posey, today called on colleagues to get behind the Labour leader, saying getting rid of Boris is the only way to avoid a no-deal Brexit come October 31st. Speaking to BBC R4's Today program, Mr. Hosey said there are growing concerns that Mr. Johnson could circumvent the Benn Act, legislation that blocks a no deal. Backing a vote of no confidence, Mr. Hosey said, we have to do that because there is now no confidence that the Prime Minister will obey the law and seek the extension that Parliament voted for only a few weeks ago. So they're not. This is kind of the stuff that I've tried to state before. If there's a politician I like and they ascend to some leadership position, I want it to be Democratic. So I've seen polls where they have the Labor Party, just trailing the Conservative Party 12 points behind, 8 points behind. And look, I'll say it truthfully. I think a lot of those voters in the UK who are still backing the Conservatives after, a period of unrest where they've expressed disdain with their own leadership there are stupid. Like, why continue to support something that doesn't work? That being said, if Corbyn were to become prime minister, I'd want it to be through an election. So if they said, hey, you know what? Forget waiting until 2022, which is when the next one is scheduled. Let's do it this month or next week or whatever. Hey, fine by me if you want. But this little coming into office through some maneuvering that is not democratic, I'm good. It's kind of like with the U.S. how we have these people vote for their representative, but they don't vote for the leadership in Congress. So, we end up getting someone like Pelosi, who at one point was sitting at a approval rating that was literally below 30%. That person can sit in leadership and be considered a character that we're supposed to just put up with. It's like, why did she get the most votes out of the people? Did she? No, she just got the most money and then gave it back to her different colleagues and corrupted them, and then they voted for her as part of a payback scheme. Same thing with Schumer in the Senate. Whenever people vote for a political party and then they get to pick which individual is going to be in charge without their input, you've already got a problem, because that shows a disconnect between those in office and those that are not in office, who should be the main people deciding who the hell gets to be in any position. I thought Elliot was going to write something else. I'd asked him a question. He ignored me. I feel so hurt. But yeah, this backdoor plot, I hope it doesn't happen, because it doesn't exactly seem like a democratic thing to do. And also, the thing about May is that even though her whole premiership was just Brexit, 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 backstop, Brexit, backstop, Brexit, backstop, as far as international eyes were concerned, like those are the only stories that we heard for the most part. At the very least, she got to be in a position for a couple of years before they just said, yeah, this is not going to work out. I don't want him to just get in office and then days, weeks, months later, well, we're kind of trying to make this deal that we've been failing at doing for 3 years. And we think that if we get rid of you, this is magically going to turn over for us, even though it hasn't for the last 3 years. And I hate saying that because from what I can tell, Johnson is literally, Theresa May with a penis. So, like, I'm not saying that as some supporter of his. I'm simply stating that I would prefer he gets a chance to actually do stuff in office, and then, maybe after a year or so, we can reevaluate if he should stay there. Let me say hello to Ruben and to Envoy, who has decided to reappear after his this sudden disappearance last night in the live show. Ruben, you better pick who you want for that documentary, or else we're gonna pull somebody's name out of a hat. Man, this is really incredible. I don't think I've ever heard of a foreign leader of a developed country. So one of the what was it, 9 of them, getting in office, and within a month or two of them being there, uh, oh, well, maybe we should get rid of him as part of our plot to, try and save this deal. I've never heard of that before. This is some uncharted territory. I'm sure it's occurred somewhere. I can't think of it to save my life. I mean, this is insane. Let me see what Envoy said. Damn, Ruben, you still ain't picked a president for the documentary, LOL, or just LOL. Well, I said before I'm gonna do one for Nixon, and then you know, I tried to leave it up to him because he's one of the like 4 people on Patreon. So I was trying to get their input, and he's the most recurring of them. You get the point. I was trying to make this a democratic thing, but he doesn't want to vote. Ruben says Boris Johnson is more liked by the right wing Brexit people than May was. Well, yeah, I figured because I mean, let's face it, these leadership contests within parties, just in any country, are 2 things. Again, when they're not decided by voters, they're popularity contest among peers, or there's some kind of quid pro quo thing where you do a favor for one person, that's that. Would be an interesting to pick. Yeah, Envoy. I was really disturbed when I did that video last year, and people were like, "Oh, I don't even know who that is, or I don't know much about him." I was like, he's literally considered one of the top 10 best presidents. At least he was until the Trail of Tears thing got a little bit more traction. Um, let's see, Ruben. I have 4 options. Oh, you're not going to pick anything modern. Oh, okay. I mean, we could do Johnson because now, or A Johnson because he is, we're getting a sort of retread of the impeachment thing, and I'd love to go over him being acquitted by 1 vote, and just how crappy his presidency was. It'll be cool. So that might be a possible option. Also, it probably wouldn't be that long either because we don't have as much information. Oh, Envoy, Van Buren was the only sitting vice president elected for over 100 years until the older Bush got elected in '88. So between those 2, no sitting vice president ever won the presidency. And I think he actually has there's some other thing he was known for, which is being the only president that was alive during the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. So there's no other president was alive during both of those conflicts other than him. Albert says video about the Great Depression, thoughts of America during that time. I mean, that's really because we didn't have at that point a lot of safety nets and other provisions to keep people on their foot, on their stuff. But you get the point. There's a lot of things we can go into. But look, I'm gonna see if I can find something else to put in here because I want to. I'm reading the article right here. It says that Corbyn called for Johnson to resign. Let me see. Labor members chanted Johnson out as Jeremy Corbyn gave an unexpected address to the party conference in Brighton following the bombshell Brexit judgment. Labour's leader warned Boris Johnson could soon become the shortest serving prime minister there's ever been. He added it demonstrates a contempt for democracy and abuse of power by him. I will be in touch immediately to demand that Parliament is recalled so we can question that Prime Minister, demand that he obeys the law that's being passed by Parliament, and recognize our parliament is elected by our people to hold our government to account. Boris Johnson was today dealt a historic defeat as the Supreme Court ruled he broke the law to shut down Parliament over Brexit. The Prime Minister faced demands to resign after the UK's highest court ruled unanimously that he acted unlawfully. Now think about that. The highest court in the UK ruled unanimously that he acted unlawfully. Now ask yourself, do you ever think the Supreme Court would do that? No, Ruben, the earliest one of the American presidents that I respect on a personal level is Quincy Adams because he was the early supporter of abolition. I mean, that's well before Dred Scott and the rest of that. He was just ahead of his time by several decades. He was pretty incredible. A total of 11 justices said shutting down the Commons for 5 weeks before the Brexit deadline had an extreme effect on democracy. Declaring the prorogation of Parliament unlawful, void, and no effect, Supreme Court President Lady Hale declared Parliament has not been prorogued. And she said the Commons and Lord Speakers can take immediate steps to enable each House to meet as soon as possible. Commons Speaker John Bercow, who is the, if you remember the when they do the Prime Minister questions, the one that order. Triggered urgent talks with party leaders within minutes, declaring the House of Commons must convene without delay. Deputy Labor leader Tom Watson said Boris Johnson should resign. Wow. Okay, so they want him out because of the Supreme Court ruling that he was unlawful, which is what I guess is kind of disturbing. Is that isn't it sad that in modern society we can't even just like admit that people are how do I explain this? If I were to say break into someone's house, most people with common sense would not defend that. They would say that was unlawful. They would say that is something that I should face some kind of reprimanding for doing because it's not within the laws to do that. Whenever these prime ministers or these leaders of any countries do something that breaks the law, we can't even just have people admit that and then public shame be enough to, actually condemn what they're doing. We have to have a court of the top, what are supposed to be the top lawyers in the country, all get together and say, or at least the majority of them say, hey, we're sick of this person doing this thing that is against the law for that to even be a decision. I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but basically, it's really disturbing that when these people in high positions of power do things that are against the law, we can't even just have regular people admit that's the case. We have to get verification from the top dogs. Envoy says they're held in higher regard. It's crazy, really. Ruben says Bush 43 is descendant of Franklin Pierce through his mom, Barbara. Yeah, there's a lot of different relationships we can go into, like how LBJ's his son-in-law was a senator from Virginia. Let's see. Ruben says after Van Buren with the presidency. Okay, yeah. So I've read all the comments. Good. But yeah, if Corbyn were to become prime minister, I'd want it to be with an election. I'd want him to start his tenure in a very similar way to how May did, where it's after being put in there diplomatically, or rather through democracy, so having a popular vote by the people, and then being able to actually begin a tenure that doesn't feel like it's robbed or off the backbone of something else that was going on that people weren't in favor of. The only way you could kind of maybe get me to reconsider my support for him getting it through this way is if they did polls where they had, like, let's say Boris at, I don't know, 30%, and then Corbyn at 40 or something, just where it shows that more people like one over the other. Like, okay, fine, we can do it that way. It's easy convincing us common folk. Oh, it's easy convicting us common folk. Yeah. And this is crazy as hell. I mean, again, one of the reasons I really don't lean toward Trump getting impeached, besides the fact that I think it'll help him in his reelection bid, is that I think when people vote for a president, they should be allowed, unless they do something completely. And it's like the way our stuff is structured is you can go to some country and bomb and kill thousands of people for no reason or for money or whatever, oil, and that's okay. That's fine. That's the status quo. But if you try to get the son of someone you're running against in trouble, here comes the, people that are so upset by this and the virtuous characters and whatnot. All right, Ruben, I'll try to do it that way. Oh, I was trying to do the other Johnson, but I guess I'll put him off to the the back burner. Um, but like I was saying, you can't make me feel bad over one person being gone after by head of state when we literally see thousands get killed by heads of states of all kind of different countries with no public outrage. And really, what's even more disturbing is if we went off of my criteria of impeachment of, you bomb and kill all these people for in an unconstitutional war, you're out, we would be seeing a different president every other week. So, like at this point, it feels as if we're kind of holding people to different standards and not really we're not doing anything that's really that worthy of condemnation. That impeachment stuff is just the Democrats trying to protect their front runner. That's that. Couldn't protect the innocent people in Yemen, couldn't protect the innocent Iraqi civilians, couldn't protect the innocent Libya civilians. But they'll sure help their good old former vice president, his son. They'll make sure they're well taken care of. There's a Boris Johnson chicken that looked like some kind of KFC meme. Uh, oh, this is what I was talking about right here. This is by Express. And it says Jeremy Corbyn support plummets as Boris Johnson snatches 14-point lead in new poll. The Conservative leader's hardball tactics and his do or die British Brexit pledge are improving popular with voters, with 35% of respondents throwing their support behind the party ahead of Labour's 21%. So this is what I'm talking about. If the public doesn't support a candidate or a person for a leadership position, I don't think they should have it. And I say that as someone that pretty much, I mean, from what I've seen of Corbyn, he doesn't really seem to have a position I disagree with, other than, I guess, again, I'm not entirely aware of Brexit. I'm simply saying that I align a lot more with Corbyn than I do with Johnson. And I'm in favor of Johnson staying simply because it's kind of a stupid thing to take the more popular person and try to like get them out because people in leadership are like, well, him being out is going to help this Brexit plan finally go through after years of stagnation. So, wow, there's really not that much to this stuff. It's just Supreme Court rules something, more Brexit stuff. The hell is this? It's by the Guardian, so it's not tabloid. Jeremy Corbyn has warned Boris Johnson he is not above the law after the Prime Minister suggested he would refuse to seek another Brexit extension, despite MPs passing a bill to prevent a no deal Brexit deal. That's a little tongue twister. No deal Brexit deal. No deal Brexit deal. Speaking on a visit to Norwich on Saturday, the Labour leader said, "We're in quite extraordinary territory when the Prime Minister says he is above the law. They're preparing for chaos. The best thing they could do is actually make sure he abides with the decision of Parliament, which has passed a new act in order to prevent a crashing out on 31st October." I hate when they do that. They can't just put October 31st. They have to put the number in front of the month. And I've only ever seen that in the UK and in just, I don't know, whatever. And extend from 3 months in order for there to be sensible negotiations with the EU. Any sensible prime minister would do that. Legal experts have warned that Boris Johnson could face prison if he refuses to abide by the bill, which was passed on Friday and is set to become law on Monday. Scottish Conservative MSMP Adam Tompkins, a former law professor, said Boris Johnson must resign rather than break the law by forcing through a no-deal Brexit, while Lord MacDonald, the former director of public prosecutions, damn, he's sitting up there. I just picture him watch people get tear gassed and put in the electric chamber and whatnot. Not electric chamber, electric chair, and the gas chamber, uh, and lethal injection, all the other little tactics. Said if Johnson refused to request an extension, he would be found in contempt of court. A refusal in the face of that would amount to contempt of court, which could find that person in prison. They're not going to put him in jail. I can't. I guarantee you, if we were to go through the entire history of Britain, you couldn't think of a single prime minister that had gone to jail. Because it's like when you get those offices, you have immunity. You can do whatever you want. Rubin says the Democrats were fine with throwing Biden under the bus to raise Kamala's profile. Oh yeah, that's why I said they have no. They just everything with them is the lesser of two evils. Um, so when it looked like Harris was going to get some big boost, they tried to make Biden out to be some horrible, evil, segregationist backbencher, and then we get this Ukraine thing, and they say, oh well, we're trying to make Trump look like the son of Satan himself. So we'll make it appear that our lovely, wonderful vice president and his very lawful son were just sitting here and having these Ukraine connections, and there was nothing weird about it that actually could warrant being investigated. No, it's all just a political thing. And I'm like, I don't dismiss that Trump would do that, but I also kind of don't care because if it's actually true that this happened, I want them to be investigated. It doesn't matter if they're a Democrat or Republican. Told you I don't toe the party line. I'm not on anybody's side. Rubin said, I think the rest of the Obama administration, including Obama himself, are also complicit with Biden's corruption in Ukraine, and that's why the Democrats are going on their way to defend him, Biden. Who will? Oh, okay. So you wrote something else, but I was going to tell you, there's actually been a statement by Cheney. So Liz, the daughter of everybody's favorite VP, the most powerful vice president ever, and she said she was doing a deflection thing when this happened, but she was saying that she wanted an investigation into why the Obama administration did not do more to protect American elections. And I'm not opposed to doing that, but I can still admit, even as I say, yeah, that's kind of something worth looking into. It's only being brought up to try and shield from the person that is currently being mentioned, because you only do that stuff when you're trying to distract from something. Ruben says, who will Niger Farage get to help him get his version of Brexit take off? Boris Johnson is not very charismatic with the public because he's in charge. Now that he's in charge, yeah, no idea. I told you, I think it's going to kind of be like someone actually made this comparison. They said that, yeah, it's all right, Ruben. I figured out what you were saying. But someone made a comparison where they said Brexit is like the UK's version of the US's never-ending wars, where it's like people try to make it seem as if, oh, yeah, if we just do this one thing, we'll be out of there. And it goes on year after year. I guarantee you, when people voted to get out of this 3 years ago, no one thought in their right mind that we would be here, almost 2/5 of a decade later, still trying to get out of the European Union. I guarantee you that. And it's the same thing with these conflicts. They always get you involved in this conclusion that if we just do these 2-3 steps, it's finished. Then they muddy up the waters. That's why when you hear politicians talk about ending a war throughout their tenure, when they get in office, they go, oh, we're going to take some troops out, 100 out. Oh, we're going to stick 200 back in. Or we're going to take out 150. Or we're going to put 300 back in. And it just goes on and on and on. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a decade-long war. Or something even longer than that, like Afghanistan. I mean, like anyone who still thinks that these conflicts are caused because we're trying to protect Americans from foreign invaders is an idiot. Afghanistan should have ended at the earliest, at the latest, actually, by maybe 2004. I mean, what should have happened was that Democrats should have said, you know what, we got lied into Iraq, and that really is going nowhere. Let's try to get this concluded over here. This one that started earlier. It shouldn't have been allowed to go into the Obama years, and then he was stupid for letting that continue on, and doing that same yo-yo thing. 100 troops now, 200 out, 600 in, 400 out. Man, that's gonna just keep on happening. It's gonna be the yo-yo, and that's the same thing with Brexit. Oh, we have this new deal. Oh, it didn't pass. We got another one. Didn't pass. New one. Doesn't pass. Get rid of the prime minister. New deal. Doesn't pass. Politics is like in the modern era. Politics really feels like a hamster wheel. Like I actually want to get a video. If I ever talk about one of these different wars or Brexit again, I want to get buy a hamster and just have it run on the on the wheel while talking about whatever the issue is, because that's literally what I think of every time I hear of these topics. Like it's going nowhere. I guarantee you, if they get rid of Johnson and we get Corbyn or some other conservative leader, we're going to have more of this, because what they have to do is just pick an agreement and settle on it. But there's all these little internal disputes, and the people, are doing their little their protest stuff, but it's not causing any effective change. And then what pisses me off is that I can't even feel entirely sympathetic to them, because they still want to back the conservatives. Like, why do you think I talk trash about Democrats? Because I watched them for 8 years in the White House after 8 years of Republicans do pretty much the exact same thing about everything other than the environment. So, like, I'm not one of these people that believes if something fails repeatedly, let's try the same approach. But that's what they're doing in the UK. Oh, we've had conservative leadership now for at least 3 years, because I'm trying to remember who the prime minister before May was. Let's stay supporting of, and before someone says, well, they changed leadership, like, yeah, but they just did a poll this month where the conservatives still have 10 points of support over the Labor Party. Like, what the hell? You guys just want to do the yo-yo thing. Not even the yo-yo, because the yo-yo is, well, one side doesn't want to go to the other. That one doesn't want to go back to the other one. With them, it's just, let's keep hoping that the party that has failed in leadership on this issue decides to actually change something this time around. There was actually a user who came in my comment section. I miss them. They were there for the Theresa May video I did a couple months back, and they were just writing paragraphs of so much valuable stuff, and it's like, man, why can't we get more people to comment like that? Ruben says the establishment side of the Labour Party are 100% against Brexit and are going out of their way to get rid of Corbyn. And I think May's predecessor was David Cameron. Yeah, it was. I forgot at the moment. Man, I'm telling you, the only country where I remember all the heads of state is the U.S. Like, I really do have to get more evaluated with these, with the leadership of these places. And usually that's only because they don't really make a fuss about the new leader of somewhere unless it's a really controversial figure, or the leadership changes. Like, we don't hear much about them ever. So like North Korea is really, easy to remember because it's only 3 people. And even then I still can't remember their names for the most part. So it's, it's that little yo-yo thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to remember these people's names, and then 2 weeks later, you remember any new persons? No, not at all. The Blairies. Oh, is that one of the? I know they have multiple parties over there as well, which is. I mean, I do think, and I mean, I am kind of crap talking the UK populists for still supporting the Conservative Party after years of being disappointed by their Brexit strategy. But they do have at least one thing over us, which is having multiple parties that actually have a chance of winning. Establishment Labor are Blairies after Tony Blair. Oh. Are those like the centrist members? I just want to clarify. I remember Blair. Blair was the he was the prime minister from when I was born up until I was like 9. So he was one of the longer serving ones. That's kind of how it goes. Whenever someone's in there for a long time, you usually know who they are. The problem is the way stuff is now. Usually, if you weren't alive when they were, or in office, a lot of times people forget who someone is because of just like really a really crappy record of popular culture and keeping certain historical figures relevant. It's really sad. The establishment Democrats of the UK. They got their own Joe Manchin. Hmm. All right. Does anyone have anything left to say? Because I think we've reached the totality of the stream. I'm glad I got to do this because this morning I just passed out. Like I went for a walk and I came back and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a stream, and then yeah. In conclusion, I hope that they get what they wanted. Leave the European Union. And I'm kind of astonished that it's taken this long. And for that, the more years that something takes to occur, the less likely I think it's ever going to end. So if we get another year of Brexit, we'll probably get another year after that. It's just they're doing this on purpose now. Blairies are even more irritating with spamming PC culture to compensate being Zionist and neoliberal sellouts and and con men. Yeah, I've heard that they slander Corbyn as an anti-Semite. There seems like a running theme where it's like anyone who's progressive, they have some slandering that's done to them. Like, if you're Gravel, you're a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. Forget all your other positions. If you're Sanders, you're a how much stuff do they have? He was planted by the Russian government to dissuade us from voting for Hillary. I'm like, well, I didn't vote for her, and I can tell you, Putin didn't say anything to me. If you're Tulsi, you're a Syria puppet. If you're me, you're an Iran puppet. The supreme leader is like sending me text messages. Thank you for defending our country. We got a little place for a little hole for you to sleep in when you get over here. Mm. They just smear everybody that just leans left, like actual left, not oh, I'm part of the left wing party, so I'm automatically on the left. I didn't read Putin to know. Ruben says, I didn't need Putin to know that Hillary is trash. Yes, you did. Look, you can deny it, but we have proof that you were influenced by Russian bots. Even if you decided 2 or 3 years before the election that you weren't going to vote for Clinton, the Russian bots did that because they invaded your mind like Professor X and put that information in there to not vote for her. I mean, there was no objective reason to not support a presidential candidate, especially one that is nominated by the Democrats. That's never been done before. I tell you, I just want to sometimes stuff online and just stuff people say on TV gets so ridiculous. I want to like be a walking parody. I want to go up and be like, if you don't vote for Sanders, you support the US's second Great Depression. Like what a douchebag you have to be to even say that, like with a straight face. If you don't support Corbyn for prime minister, you want Brexit to never come to pass. If you don't watch my videos, you what's the smear we can use for that? Um, you probably only watch porn or something. But yeah, Ruben, you're trying to pretend that you weren't influenced by the Russian bots. It's very admirable. I'm sure Putin will give you a position in his administration. You can be a online liaison and spread his propaganda. No matter how fact based any of your positions are, no matter how many um, uh, articles that are accredited support what you have to say, you're part of the Russian cartel, along with me and every other person that didn't vote for Hillary. Mm. Or anything else, Ruben? And we have three other people, but I guess cats have their tongues or something. I don't know. I'm not even gonna speculate anymore. People choose. They talk when they want to talk. They type when they want to type. Mm. If you don't watch Justin's channel, it's because you are CNN puppet. I'm finished now. I want to put that in my description. If you don't watch my channel, it's because you're a CNN puppet. Are your CNN's puppet? Oh my god. All right, well, cool. Thank you, Ruben, for showing up. I'll do the Andrew Johnson documentary. I'll probably finish that before the Nixon one again because of having less information, and I'll try to make it something because we don't. I don't think we've ever had a like big. You know what I'm saying? They don't usually talk about him when they do the presidents, or if they do, it's when they're doing all of them or something. So yeah, I'll try to get that done this week, and then get back to you. So thank you and have a good day.